So we've already established how to find the mean and standard deviation using these big formulas. Of course, we don't really want to do that by hand. So we also don't want to start from scratch every time we're doing this in Excel either, because that process, first of all, we do it a number of different times. We're going to need it on the homework and in our examples. And we want to have some sort of template. So I've created a template for us to sort of do each of these calculations in a little bit of a step-by-step fashion, depending on whether we're given probabilities or frequencies. But making sure you use the template correctly is also very important. Before we hop to that, just a reminder, the mean in a situation like this is also often referred to as the expected value. So if you see that language, all we mean is the mean. Okay, so let's say we have a randomly generated non-zero digit. It's going to have the probability distribution here. So randomly generated would mean that they're all equally likely, and non-zero just means we took 0 out of there. So 1 through 9, each of those has a probability of 1/9. We're going to look for the mean and standard deviation. Okay, so let's hop over and take a look at our template. So I open this up for us. And the first part is template if you're given frequencies. We were not. We were given probability. So we're actually going to use this lower template here. And if you want to use this thing over and over again, you can refer back to the link. The other thing you can do is you can just copy this. So I'm just going to Control-C copy this, and I will kind of show you the bottom here. Right, we're on sheet 1. Well, you could just scroll down a little bit farther. You could also go click on the plus. It'll bring you to a brand new sheet. So if I bring this over, it might format a little bit strangely. The easy fix on that, I can highlight at the top. I can highlight these columns, and then if I change the width of one of them, it actually changes all of them. So anyway, the template here, the reason I pulled it over was just so that I could go back, refer to these, copy and paste them as I need to. So let's take a look at our template, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit so we can see that better as well. So we were given probabilities, right, along with our data points. So very, very important for this is if you have more data points than what is listed here. So I think I only gave something like, I don't know, seven rows. So we have 9 data points that we need to use, 1 through 9. So somewhere in the middle here, just insert. So highlight however many rows you need. We need 2 more. So I'm going to insert after highlighting those 2 rows. And the only issue with this is, we got to be careful about whether or not our formulas come with us. Of course, I could see if maybe inserting them elsewhere would have made a difference. If I insert them up here, see if they come with us, they don't. So we can just kind of do what we were doing anyway. So insert these and say, all right, well, let me just make sure that the formula is still going to do what I want it to do, right? Drag these guys down. And if I click on one of these up in the formula bar, is it still multiplying those 2? Yes, it is. I could always check up here. Is it still multiplying those 2? Yes, it is. So same thing for these other pieces. I'm going to need to drag those down, and then also probably just make sure that my sum, if I highlight that, yes, it's looking at everything I wanted to. Same thing over here. I have a sum. It's looking at everything I wanted to. I'll hit enter. Remember that if you click on the cell and then up here in the formula bar, as soon as you click somewhere else, it thinks you want it in the formula. So just hit enter to get out of it. The other thing is I'll kind of show you the portion up here. I had already set in the template these probabilities to be fractions. Now, if you put in decimals, that's fine. The thing is, if this is not set to fraction and you put in something like what we're going to have, 1/9, we've seen before, this is going to do January 9th, 2021. So just be mindful of that. Okay, so our data points, right, we can start listing through here. We could also say, hey, this is a pattern. Scroll down, so it's going to do 1 through 9. Already we see some values over here filling in. Again, this is part of why it's important to have exactly as many rows as you need. Okay, 1/9, I can even scroll down for that one if it's the same every time, which it is. So, right, getting a 1 is our first digit, 1/9, 2 is our first digit, 1/9, etc. So x times p, right? Remember, this is just multiplying those two pieces. And so those look fine, and some of them are going to come out as decimals or fractions. You can change this. I don't really care so much. What I care about is the sum. This one's going to be our mean, right? So I highlighted those two for us as well. Mean and standard deviation are the two things. So mu for the mean, sigma for the standard deviation. Okay, the sum of our probabilities should always be 1. We know that, sum of the sample space. And then otherwise, these other pieces are just going to walk through for us, or they should anyway. So let's just make sure. So let me click on 16 here. So if I click on that, what is it referencing? So it's referencing a fixed cell. Notice that it's referencing some fixed cell C28. So this is the only downside of copying over. Absolute references are going to stay absolute. Relative references will come with you, but C28 is way down here. So I need to adjust this a little bit because I want to reference, right, x minus mu. I want to reference this highlighted cell. So I'm just going to say, oh, I'm actually in C12. And now we see it's highlighted and we go, cool, that's what I want. I shouldn't have picked a random point. I guess I should have picked the first one here. So let me just go up to that first one, C12. And now I can either double click or drag this thing down. We'll see those update a little bit, and those look a little more reasonable. This is why it's always a good idea. Check, kind of check in, make sure that your formulas are looking good, even when you're working off the template. All right, and then the last column here, again, just check that we are actually referencing the right things. It looks like we are, and this one only has relative references, so it should be fine. I don't know why I changed that to 1 7/9, but whatever, that's fine. Right, this one again, we can check that, totally fine. So we see that our sum, right, that looks good. We had checked that earlier. And then this is the other piece, check that our square root, that one was a relative reference, so that one is fine as well. So we get a standard deviation for this one of 2.58 and an expected value, a mean of 5. That sort of makes sense, right? 5 is smack dab in the middle of 1 and 9, and if all things are equally likely, they kind of balance each other out on either side of 5. Okay, so let's take a look. Let me pull that back. So that would be our answers for the mean and standard deviation. I won't write those in. We can pull those off the chart there. Okay. So let's say we have, actual legitimate financial records, which are not going to be random like what we had before. They follow Benford's law, and the distributions are given like this. So again, we're given probabilities. So the nice thing is I'm going to go back to my spreadsheet here, and I'm going to say, okay, well, normally I'd probably want to copy this and put it somewhere else. Really what I'm going to do is just clear out these probabilities and update them with the ones that I need. So I'm gonna maybe find a slightly better way to do this. Might not be great. I can get a few of them in here. So let's see, 0.301. And if it changes it to a fraction, don't worry about it. Remember that you can just highlight these and you'll see up here it's got the actual value. It just gives you a close fraction. The other thing you can do is from the drop down, just change it to a number, and you can change the number of decimal places, right, less or more. So since these are all 3 decimal places, we'll do this. Okay, the next one, 0.176, 0.125. We should see things kind of changing as we enter in these values. 0.097. And I'm actually going to pause the video, fill these out, and I will start. They'll magically be filled in. Look at that, the magic of editing. So we have all those probabilities from the table filled in here. And we see again the sum of those is 1, as they should be, right? Our probabilities, if these are the only outcomes, the probabilities of those outcomes should be 1. So this is always just here as a check, just to make sure things are good. Okay, and then we have the product of things here. We got, again, some fractions, some decimals. If you're really bothered by this at all, you can always just, again, change this to number. That's fine. You can extend the decimal places. That's fine. I'm not too worried about that. What we really care about is, hey, what does the sum look like? and what does the standard deviation look like. So the sum, again, always good to check. Yep, it looks like it's adding up the things we want. I'll take another random guy here and just make sure we're good, right? It's using our data point and the sum. Life is good, so hit enter, right? Don't click anywhere else, it'll mess around. Same thing with these numbers over here. If you don't like that they're in fractions, change them to numbers, that's fine. Again, I'm not too worried about the format of these, but it can really maybe visually be a little bit alarming. So click on one of those, again, just check. Yep, it's multiplying the things I want. And then we have our standard deviation. Again, one more time, just check. We're doing the square root of that guy. Yep, looks good. So here's our sum, 3.44. Here's our standard deviation, 2.46. And so for legitimate records, we expect the expected value, right, the mean is actually lower than 5, lower than the theoretical value. And we can tell that from the probabilities. The only other thing I'll say about this is it works pretty much the same if we're given frequencies, right? Frequencies would just be raw numbers. How many times did a thing happen? So all I've done in this chart is set things up so that if you put in the frequencies, like something happened 3 times, something happened 4 times, something happened 2 times, it'll adjust these probabilities for you and everything will go from there. So that is the general idea of using the template. Hopefully that helps as you're working on the activities and the homework.